The massive chamber on Nexus Prime stretched as far as the eye could see. Thousands of alien beings filled the space, their voices creating a symphony of strange sounds. Some looked like walking crystals that sparkled in the light. Others floated in the air like glowing clouds. A few had tentacles instead of arms, while some had multiple eyes covering their heads. This was the Grand Galactic Council, where the most powerful species in the galaxy met to discuss important matters. Today, they were talking about humans. Ambassador. Velthor stood up from his seat. He was tall and thin, with forearms and skin that looked like polished metal. His voice boomed across the chamber as he spoke. My fellow council members, we have received another request from the species called humans. They want to join our council. He paused, and many aliens in the room started making sounds that seemed like laughter. These humans, Velthar continued, are still using rockets that burn fuel to barely leave their own planet. They fight wars over simple things like oil and land. They have only existed for a few thousand years, while we have been exploring space for millions of years. A creature that looked like a floating jellyfish spoke next. Its voice came from inside everyone's minds instead of through the air. The humans cannot even travel faster than light. How can they possibly help us with anything important? More. Laughter filled the chamber. Being made of living rock, raised one of its 6 arms. I have studied these humans, it said in a voice like grinding stones. They still get sick from diseases we cured 1,000,000 years ago. They age and die in less than 100 years. They're like children playing with toys. The laughter grew louder. Some aliens were holding their sides, if they had sides. Others were making high-pitched whistling sounds that meant they found something very funny. What could such a young and weak species teach us? Asked another delegate. This one looked like a giant spider made of silver. We have ships that can destroy entire star systems. We can create new planets. We can bend time itself to our will. What do humans have that we could possibly want? Far away from this meeting, in the cold, dark space beyond Pluto, something was happening. A small research station that looked ordinary from the outside was actually hiding humanity's greatest secret. Inside the station, Dr. Hyenwoo Kim was listening to the broadcast from the Galactic Council meeting. Hyenwoo. It's a middle-aged man with kind eyes and hair that was starting to turn gray. He had spent most of his life working on projects that nobody else knew about. Next to him sat Dr. Sa-Young Park, a brilliant woman who understood things about space and time that most people could not even imagine. They really think we are stupid, don't they? So-Young said as she watched the aliens laugh at humanity. Hyunwoo nodded slowly. They see our rockets and our wars, and they think that is all we are capable of. He turned to look at the massive window that showed the stars outside. They have no idea what we have been working on. On the screen, the aliens continued to mock humans. One delegate, who looked like a tree made of crystal, was showing pictures of human cities. Look at these primitive buildings, it said. We build cities that float in space, and they still live on the ground like animals. Another alien, shaped like a giant eye with tentacles, projected thoughts for everyone to hear. Their technology is so simple. They use electricity that flows through metal wires. They cannot even talk to each other across space without delay. The council members were enjoying themselves. They felt very smart and very advanced compared to the humans. They had seen many young species try to join the council over the millions of years, and all of them had been rejected. Humans were just another disappointment. But Dr. Hyenwoo and Dr. So-Young knew something that these advanced aliens did not know. Behind them, hidden in the depths of the research station, something incredible was waiting. It had been waiting. For 50 years, ever since humans first discovered it near Pluto, the discovery had changed everything. But humanity had kept it secret. They had learned to be careful about showing their true abilities too early. While the galaxy saw them as primitive, humans had been studying something that even these advanced aliens could not understand. Should we show them? So-Young asked. Quietly, Hyenwoo smiled. It was not a mean smile, but it was the smile of someone who knew a very big secret. I think it is time, he said. I want to see what humans can really do. Let us give them exactly what they asked for. In the council chamber, the laughter was finally starting to die down. The aliens had made their point. Humans were too. Young, too weak, and too primitive to join their group. The decision was obvious, but none of them noticed the small change in their instruments. Deep space sensors that had been quiet for thousands of years were starting to detect something new. Something was moving in the space between dimensions. It was heading toward Nexus Prime. The aliens continued their meeting, unaware that everything was about to change. President Ji-Hoon Lee sat in his private office deep underground in Seoul. The room had no windows, and thick walls protected it from any kind of spying. Only a few people in the world knew this place existed. Today, he was meeting with Admiral Minho Choi, a man who controlled humanity's most important secret. Admiral Minho was a serious man, with gray hair and eyes that had seen things most people would not believe. He carried a small metal box that required his fingerprint, eye scan, and voice to open. Inside the box were documents that could change how humans saw their place in the universe. Sir, Admiral Minho began, the Galactic Council has rejected our request to join them, I think. We are too primitive and too young. President Ji-Hoon nodded. It expected this answer. What they do not know, he said quietly, is that we have been hiding our real abilities for 50 years. The Admiral opened his metal box and pulled out old photographs. The pictures showed a strange object floating in space near Pluto. It was huge, bigger than any ship humans had ever built. But the strangest thing about it was that parts of it seemed to disappear and reappear, as if it was not completely there.
It all started in 1973, Admiral Minho explained. We sent a probe to study what we thought was just a strange rock near
Pluto. But when the probe got close, it found something incredible. The object was a ship, but not like any ship anyone had ever seen. It was made of materials that did not exist on Earth. Parts of it seemed to exist in normal space, while other parts existed somewhere else entirely. The ship was empty, but it was not dead. It was waiting. Our scientists could not understand it at first, the Admiral continued. The ship used technology that was millions of years ahead of anything we had. But here's the strange part. It would only respond to human minds. President Ji-Hoon looked at the photographs more carefully. What do you mean it would only respond? To humans? We tried everything, Admiral Minho said. We brought in our best scientists, our smartest computers, even some animals to see if they could make it work. Nothing happened. But when Dr. Haeon-woo Kim first touched the ship's control surface, it came alive. Dr. Haeon-woo had been a young scientist then, fresh out of university and excited to work on space projects. He had volunteered to be the first person to actually go inside the mysterious ship. When he put his hand on what looked like a control panel, the entire ship began to glow with soft light. The ship had been built by an ancient race called the Architects. These beings had lived millions of years ago, but they had become so advanced that they no longer needed physical bodies. Before they disappeared, they had built special ships and hidden them throughout the galaxy. The Architects were looking for something specific, Admiral Minho explained. They wanted to find a species that could think in ways that other species could not. Most aliens in the galaxy are very logical and organized in how they think. But humans are different. Humans had evolved on a planet where the barriers between different dimensions were thin. Most people did not know this, but Earth existed in a place where normal space touched other kinds of space. This had affected how human brains developed. Over thousands of years, while other alien species could build amazing technology, they could only think in 3 dimensions. Humans had learned to think in ways that included other dimensions without even knowing it. This made them special in a way that even the most advanced aliens could not copy. The ship taught us things, the Admiral said. It showed us how to see beyond normal space, how to move through dimensions that other species cannot even detect. But it also warned us about something. The Architects had left a message inside the ship. They explained that the galaxy was not as safe as it seemed. There were dangers coming from places beyond normal space. Threats that the current alien civilizations could not see or fight against. The Architects had been preparing for these dangers, and they needed helpers. So we have been preparing, Admiral Minho said. For 50 years, we have been learning to use the ship and build others like it. We have trained pilots who can think in multiple dimensions. We have weapons that can affect reality itself. President Jahoon was quiet for a long moment. The other countries? Do they know? The project involves scientists and soldiers from all over Earth, the Admiral replied. This is bigger than any one nation. We are preparing to defend not just Earth, but the entire galaxy. The ship had taught humans to build technology that worked by combining human consciousness with architect science. The results were incredible. Human ships could now travel through dimensions that other species did not know existed. They could become invisible by existing in multiple dimensions at once. They could defend against attacks that came from directions that had no names. The aliens think we are primitive because they see our old rockets and our old wars, Admiral, Minho said. They do not know that we have been quietly becoming something much more powerful. Outside in the research station near Pluto, Dr. Hyenwoo and Dr. Soyoung were making final preparations. The time for hiding was over. Humanity was ready to show the galaxy what they had really become. Deep in space, alarms started ringing in monitoring stations across the galaxy. The Galactic Council had machines that watched for dangerous things. In space, a tall alien with purple skin was staring at his computer screen with wide eyes. The numbers he was seeing made no sense. Commander, he called out, his voice shaking, you need to see this right away. Commander Zixtel rushed over to look at the screen. He'd been watching space for over 300 years, and he had never seen readings like these. What am I looking at? He asked. Sir, something is happening near the edge of our sensor range, the purple alien explained. The space itself is ... changing. It looks like reality is bending in ways that should not be possible. Far away from Nexus Prime, in the cold darkness beyond Pluto, something incredible was happening. The research station that had looked small and quiet for 50 years was now glowing with bright lights. Inside the station, Captain Yunji Nam was putting on a special suit that looked like it was made of liquid metal. Captain Yunji was a brave woman who had been chosen for this moment after years of training. She had learned to pilot regular spaceships, but that was nothing compared to what she was about to do. Captain, all systems are ready, called Lieutenant Commander Tae-Hyun Yu from his station. Tae-Hyun was wearing a helmet with wires that connected directly to his brain. This allowed him to control the ship's systems by thinking about them. Instead of using his hands, the ship they were preparing to fly was called the Prometheus. For 50 years, it had been mostly asleep, waiting for humans to learn how to wake it up properly. Now, as Captain Youngji walked toward the bridge, the ship began to respond to her presence. The walls of the ship started to glow with soft, moving lights. The floor felt warm under her feet, as if the ship was alive and welcoming her aboard. In many ways, it was alive. Prometheus was not just a machine, it was a combination of advanced technology and living consciousness. Beginning phase transition, Tae-Hyun announced. His voice was calm, but everyone could hear the excitement underneath. They had practiced this moment many times. But this was the first time they would do it for real. The Prometheus began to change in ways that were hard to describe. To someone watching from outside, the ship would seem to flicker in and out of existence. Like a ghost that could not decide whether to be real or not, Captain Yunji felt the change as it happened. Her mind, trained for years to think in multiple dimensions, began to perceive space in ways that no other species could. She could see not just forward and backward, left and right, up and down, but also in directions that normal language had no words for. Captain Tae-Hyun said, his eyes wide with wonder. The ship is responding better than we ever hoped. It feels like it was made for us. The Prometheus was indeed made for humans, though they were only beginning to understand why. The ancient architects who had built it had been searching the galaxy for millions of years, looking for a species that could think the way humans think. Most aliens were very logical and organized, but humans were different. They could imagine things that did not exist yet. They could feel their way through problems instead of just thinking through them. As the ship finished waking up, its true size became clear. The Prometheus was enormous, but not in the way that normal ships were big. It was big in several dimensions at once. From one angle, it might look like a small fighter ship. From another angle, It might look bigger than a moon. The size depended on which dimension you were looking from. All stations report ready, Captain, announced Dr. So-Young Park from the science station. She was monitoring the ship's systems, but the readings on her screens looked more like music than numbers. The ship operated on principles that were beyond normal science. Then let us go introduce ourselves to the galaxy, Captain Youngji said. With a smile, the Prometheus began to move, but it did not move the way normal ships moved. Instead of pushing itself through space with engines, it folded space around itself. It stepped from one place to another by moving through dimensions that other species could not even see. Back on Nexus Prime, the alarms were getting louder. Commander Zixtel was staring at his screens in complete confusion. "It is moving toward us," he said, "but it is not moving through normal space. Our sensors say it is everywhere and nowhere at the same time." The journey from Earth to Nexus Prime should have taken many years, even with the fastest ships the galaxy had ever built. But the Prometheus was not limited by normal rules of travel. It moved through the seventh dimension, where distance meant something completely different. In just a few hours, the impossible ship appeared in the sky above Nexus Prime, ready to change everything the galaxy thought they knew about humans. The sky above Nexus Prime suddenly changed. One moment it was empty, except for stars and moons. The next moment, something impossible appeared that made everyone stop and stare. The Prometheus hung in space like a dream that had become real. The ship looked different depending on how you looked at it. From one side, it seemed small and sleek. From another side, it looked bigger than the largest space stations. The metal of the ship seemed to flow like water, and lights moved across its surface in patterns that hurt to watch for too long. On the surface of Nexus Prime, millions of aliens looked up at the sky in confusion and fear they had never seen anything like this ship before. Their most advanced scientists could not explain what they were seeing. "What is that thing?" asked a crystal being to his friend. "I do not know," replied the friend, who looked like a walking tree. "Our sensors cannot get a clear reading on it. It seems to be there and not there at the same time." In the command center of the Hegemony Warfleet, Admiral Corinth was not confused. He was angry. Admiral Corinth was a proud warrior who had won battles across the galaxy. He had never seen a ship he could not defeat, and he was not going to start now. "All ships, prepare for battle," he commanded. His voice was heard on every warship in the system. "This unknown vessel has entered our space without permission. We will show them what happens to those who challenge the hegemony." The hegemony. Warfleet was the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Their ships carried weapons that could crack planets in half. Their shields could stop attacks from entire star systems. Admiral Corinth commanded 50 of these ships, and he was sure that would be enough to deal with one strange vessel. The flagship Devastator moved toward the Prometheus. It was a massive ship, black as space itself, with weapons that glowed with deadly energy. Admiral Corinth stood on the bridge, his forearms crossed, his metal skin gleaming under the lights. "Unknown ship," he broadcast on all frequencies, "you have entered Galactic Council space without permission. Identify yourself immediately, or we will destroy you." Inside the Prometheus, Captain Youngji Nam was sitting in a chair that seemed to be made of light. She was calm and relaxed, even with 50 warships pointing their weapons at her. She had trained for this moment for years. "This is Captain Youngji Nam of the Earth vessel Prometheus," she replied. Her voice was sent across space to every ship and every communication device in the system. "We received your discussion about humanity's place in the galaxy. We thought it was time for a proper introduction." Admiral Corinth laughed. The sound was like metal scraping against metal. "One ship against my entire fleet? You humans are even more foolish than we thought. Last warning, surrender now or be destroyed." Captain Yunji smiled. "Admiral, you are welcome to try." Admiral Corinth's face turned dark with rage. "All ships, open fire, destroy that vessel." The Hegemony fleet unleashed everything they had. 50 ships fired at once, sending beams of energy that could melt mountains. Missiles that could destroy cities streaked through space. Particle weapons that could cut through any known material focused on the Prometheus. The weapons hit their target perfectly. The space where the Prometheus was floating filled with explosions and light. The energy released was enough to power entire planets for years. But when the light faded, the Prometheus was still there, completely undamaged. The ship had not even moved. "Impossible," Admiral Corinth whispered.
Nothing can survive that much firepower.
Lieutenant Commander Tae Yunyu, who was monitoring the ship's systems, turned to Captain Yunji. "Captain, their weapons passed right through us. We were in the 7th dimension when they fired, so their attacks could not touch us." The Prometheus existed in multiple dimensions at once. When the hegemony ships fired, Captain Yunji had simply shifted the ship slightly out of normal space. The weapons had hit empty space, while the ship existed in a place the aliens could not reach. "Now it is our turn," Captain Yunji said quietly. The Prometheus did not fire back with weapons. Instead, it did something much more impressive. It reached out with its dimensional technology and gently touched the hegemony flagship. Suddenly, Admiral Corinth and his crew found themselves experiencing something no being in the galaxy had ever experienced before. They began to exist in 7 dimensions. At the same time, their 3-dimensional minds tried to process what was happening, but it was impossible. Admiral Corinth could see his bridge from above, below, and from directions that had no names. He could see the past and future of every object around him. He could see the inside and outside of everything at once. His crew was experiencing the same thing, and they were all overwhelmed. "Make it stop," one of his officers begged. "I cannot think when I can see everything at once." Within minutes, the entire hegemony fleet found themselves displaced into the 4th dimension. They could see normal space, but they could not touch it or interact with it. They were trapped in a prison made of mathematics and physics they had never learned to understand. The most powerful military force in the galaxy had been defeated without a single shot being fired. They were not hurt, but they were completely helpless. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as 50 warships floated in space. Unable to move or fight, defeated by a single ship from a species they had called primitive, the Great Hall of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. Thousands of alien beings sat in complete silence, staring at the screens that showed the hegemony fleet floating helplessly in space. The most powerful warships in the galaxy were trapped like insects. In invisible webs, unable to move or fight, Ambassador Velthor, who had been laughing at humans just hours before, now stood with his forearms shaking. His metal skin had turned pale, and his voice cracked when he finally managed to speak. What are you?" he whispered into his communication device. Captain Yunji's voice came through clearly to every being in the council chamber. She sounded calm and friendly, as if she was talking to old friends instead of the aliens who had just tried to destroy her ship. "We are what you refuse to see," she said. "We are humanity. We are the inheritors of something ancient and powerful. We are the guardians of spaces between dimensions, and we are your neighbors, whether you like it or not." The council members looked at each other with fear and confusion. A creature that looked like a giant floating eye spoke first. "But how is this possible? Your species is so young. You barely know how to leave your own planet." Dr. Saw Young Park's voice joined the conversation from inside the Prometheus. "You made the mistake of thinking that age equals wisdom and that technology equals understanding. We may be young, but we learn from teachers who are older than your entire civilization." As she spoke, something incredible began to happen. The Prometheus started to change again, but this time in a way that made no sense at all. The single ship began to multiply, not by building copies, but by existing in multiple dimensions at the same time. Suddenly, there were not one but dozens of Prometheus ships floating in space around Nexus Prime. Each ship existed in a different dimensional layer, creating a fleet that spanned multiple realities. Some ships looked solid and real. Others appeared as ghostly outlines. A few seemed to flicker in and out of existence. By the ancient stars gasped a council member who looked like a walking crystal. "They have a fleet that exists everywhere and nowhere." The aliens were beginning to understand that they were not just looking at advanced technology. They were seeing something that went beyond anything they had imagined possible. These humans had somehow learned to work with forces that existed outside normal space and time. Dr. Haeunwoo Kim's voice now joined the conversation from his research station near Pluto. We want you to understand something important. The beings who taught us, the ones we call the architects, left ships like this all over the galaxy. They were searching for species who could think in ways that others could not. He paused, letting his words sink in. We were the first to pass their tests, but we will not be the last. Other species somewhere in the galaxy might be discovering their own architect ships. The universe is about to change in ways you cannot imagine. A new voice spoke from the council floor. It belonged to Counselor Thexera, an ancient being who is older and wiser than most others in the chamber. What do you want from us, humans? Captain Yoonji's answer surprised everyone. We want to offer you partnership, not conquest. We want to share what we have learned, not use it to rule over you. But first, you need to understand why this is so important. The image on the screens changed. Instead of showing the trapped warships, it now showed pictures of deep space that looked wrong somehow. There were dark areas where stars should have been, and strange shapes moving between galaxies. The architects left us warnings, Dr. So Young explained. There are threats coming from dimensions that most species cannot even see, things that feed on civilizations like yours. The architects fought these threats for millions of years before they transcended physical existence. The picture showed battles between beings of light and creatures of darkness fought in spaces that had too many angles and not enough directions. The scale of these conflicts was beyond anything the council members had ever seen. These threats are returning, Captain Yoonji continued. Your advanced weapons and shields will be useless against enemies that can attack you from dimensions you do not know exist. But together, we might have a chance. Admiral Corrant's voice came weakly from his trapped flagship. You are so powerful, why do you need us? Because power without wisdom leads to the same mistakes the architects made, Captain Yoonji replied. They became so advanced that they forgot how to work together with other species. When the real threats came, they faced them alone and paid a terrible price. She paused and her voice became gentler. We do not want to repeat their mistakes. We are offering you a choice. Continue to see us as primitive children and face the coming darkness alone. Or accept that sometimes the greatest strength comes from the most unexpected places. The Prometheus slowly released the hegemony ships from their dimensional prison. The warships returned to normal space, their crews shaken but unharmed. It was a gesture of goodwill, showing that humanity preferred cooperation to domination. The council chamber remained silent as thousands of alien minds tried to process what they had learned. The young, supposedly primitive species from a small planet had just shown them that the universe was far stranger and more dangerous than they had ever imagined. Outside, Prometheus' fleet continued to orbit Nexus Prime, a reminder that everything had changed.